Get out before I embarrass myself anymore there. All right, so Bluesette. This lesson is for, I believe it's rhythm and zaire. So that's been, I think I might have said this in other videos, but a new habit I'm trying to get is, as I'm making these, I just like mentioning who the lesson's for, because who knows, maybe I'll go back someday and it'll be a fun little memory. But whether you're Zaire or rhythm, whoever, let's talk about Bluesette. I don't plan these videos too much. I mean, newsflash, right? But I have kind of a loose idea. I find if I have to write out a script and get everything down to the minute, then I probably wouldn't make these. And I just want to get into the habit of getting comfortable doing this stuff. So thank you for bearing with me. Let's get to it. I thought first let's start talking about the melody, and then maybe we can go on to the harmony, and then I was going to bring up the original recording and kind of talk about some of the stuff that's going on in there. So let's get to it. All right, so this melody starts off just going up the scale, right? So let's see if I can get my guitar and iPad. There we go. Hey. And this is great. You get to watch me figure all this stuff out as we go. All right, finally got that squared away. So hopefully you can see my hands, everything. I forgot to mention this in other videos, but if you have any suggestions other than, hey, you're an idiot, I hate your face, please stop talking, anything outside of that, maybe hopefully constructive, let me know. Let me know if this is cool or if you want the guitar bigger when I talk about this stuff. So, okay, goes up the scale. So I think in terms of scale tones, so I'm thinking it starts on the 5th. All right, and then there's a cool sequence that happens here. So what's happening here is as you're going from the 5th of this chord. So A flat is the 5th of this chord, right? And then you've got the 3rd of this chord. And it's a cool sus sound. It reminds me a lot of a tune that I just did recently, was You Must Believe in Spring. A lot of similar motion, It does the same thing for G minor to C. So this is the 5th. You can say it's the flat 7 resolving down to the 3rd of the next chord. Even if this it doesn't really help you, it's good to start hearing these kind of terms and hearing people talk about this way. So you're the more you hear it, the less intimidated you'll be by it, and hopefully, and you'll be able to use it to make you fast, right? So kind of going through it, you can. I tend to stay in one position. Let me see. So even right there, you got kind of a cool. A cool little sequence going down. And then we get to the 4 chord. And it anticipates the minor sound. So if you think about it, it's like an F major 7th arpeggio there. If we turn that into a minor, let's see if I can get the split screen going here real quick. All right, we got it going back. We got it going back here. So this is the 6th fret. Say that's like a major, like a good old garden variety root position. So that's your E flat. So as you go from E flat major 7, you know, you'd have this scale here, right? And you know, it is the 4 chords, so it actually would be. Oh no, actually, since you've gotten there. At this point, oh yeah, I should probably put a flat there. There you go. Sorry if that was driving you crazy. So this is the 3rd right here. So what you can think about is, let's say I'm going to fill in the other notes of the scale in blue. You know, notes outside of the arpeggios. I know I talk in class a lot of times about arpeggios being the bones, not really separate from scales. They're the bones of the scale, and then you kind of, you know, you have a 4-note arpeggio, you have the majority of the scale right there. So when you go to a minor, this note now becomes flat. Same deal with, you know, I like keeping it in this position. So let's see, if I were going to rewrite this, if you think about it, if you're that part of the neck, when you go to a 2-5 in D flat, which is where this is going, this thing is all D flat. So if I'm in this part of the neck, let's say I have you know, E flat major scale. All right, there you go. I wanted to spare you the torture of watching me draw this in, but so what you have here is, I think once you get to this point of the tune, you're in E flat, and then it starts going to D flat major. Let's see if I can. So you know, if you can think about, like, this would be your 2 chord, right? E flat minor. Right? We'll talk about the chords in a second, but just talk about the melody. Boom, ba da da dum, ba dum. 4, 3, 2, 5. I'm thinking in the key of D flat, right? So all that stays in D flat. 3, 2, 1, 5. So let's see if I can get any closer to that. Just a little bit closer. All right. Ba-da-da. Let's see if I can actually. There you go. Ba-da-da-doom, ba-da-da. And here comes our next key change. Or, I don't know if you call it a key change. Maybe the fancy word would be tonicization. I think that's what they call it in school. It just means, like, you know, temporarily kind of, you know, making another key your home, but it's not like a full-blown key change, right? I think key changes or modulations are typically a bigger event than, like, you know, 2 or 3 measures on a song. So, and then you go up a B Lydian, because if you think, if we're originally still in B flat, that B flat, usually a flat 2 chord would be a Lydian. Like if it was going to resolve down, so like B sound. B flat, B Lydian, B flat major, B Lydian. So that's kind of how it works out. You go up that, let me hope we can see that. Yeah, well, I guess so, C flat, you know. That's, you know. And then I kind of add a little trill in there. I think that's what happens in the recording. So one more time just to see the recording or see the melody. You go up the scale. You got kind of this sequence. Now we're in E flat. Go up to E flat minor. Then now we're into D flat. Okay. I would say from a soloing aspect, let's just talk about the major key centers here and maybe kind of relate that to the cage system. Then we'll move on to the chords. So if I'm starting in B flat major, I'm kind of living in G shape. And I think it's always a good exercise as you're kind of getting comfortable to get really fluid in all the different cage system is make yourself stay in one part of the neck. You know, obviously the goal is to be free wherever you want, but I think giving yourself a limitation helps you kind of like really lean into some of those gray areas versus like if you hit a scale or a key that you're not comfortable with in a certain part of the neck, your natural tendency is to jump where it's comfortable. So so that melody, right, and then, so you can pretty much play that first, I don't know, was it the first 8 bars and B flat. I know there's some G harmonic minor. So when you got that D7 chord, or that A half diminished D7, that's G harmonic minor. So just to draw those notes in here, this would be, you know, I still relate everything back to the home scale in this case. You know, it's different if the tune is totally in G minor, but you know, it does live in a major key. So now we have another secondary dominant. You know, secondary is just a fancy way of saying a 5 chord that's not the actual 5 chord of a key. So this C7 is tonicizing F minor. You know, C7 normally doesn't occur in the key of B flat, right? So hence a secondary dominant. It's a dominant chord, a C7, that leads your ear to F minor. So we're going to need a sharp 4 for that. Sharp 4 being E major, or E natural. That's the third of a D7 or a C7 chord. Can't talk this morning. All right, let's put that. You know, playing the melodies just kind of shows it to you right there. Right? You can take this part up an octave. You can take the other part of the melody up an octave. That's actually pretty cool, right? So again, I'm just taking that you know, that part, moving it down an octave. So one more time. All right. So that's something to think about. Now, but once we get to that E flat, we have now changed keys. So pop quiz. If we are in third position meaning like our first finger lives around kind of the 3rd fret in general, what version of a major scale are we going to use for E flat? And all right, if you guessed pattern 1, winner, winner, chicken dinner. So it starts off in B flat, kind of does that cycle. We'll talk about the harmony in a second. Now we're in E flat. You can say it goes to E flat Dorian. I think if you're just starting out, you know, if you're more intermediate, then yes, for sure. That's great to start thinking this way. Like, oh, okay, I'm in a major scale. If I flat the 3rd and flat the 7, it kind of helps you transition to the next key. But if you're just starting out and trying to learn to improv, I like harmonic generalization and just kind of letting your ear, you know, teach you. That's how I learned. I've gone back and forth, but I'm kind of at a place now with my teaching where, like, you know, the guys that taught me, you know, I think they knew best. So I'm going back to that idea. So real quick, D flat, and that part of the neck is going to be A shape. Right? And then it goes to B major. And I think I did all this talk about B Lydian earlier, but really I think when you're soloing over it, you just think of it as B major, which is G shape, but now in fourth position. And then when you go back to B flat major, then you just go down a half step. So so real quick, I'll just kind of cycle through that. So E flat major, then go down D flat, and then it goes to B major. So what's kind of cool is, if we kept that trend going down, the next thing would be A major. You would slowly work your way up the neck. You would probably be in an E shape. So it's kind of cool. Like as the keys go down by a whole step, you go up each of these cage patterns. So that's cool. So you start off here in B flat, third position. Then you did third position pattern 1. And then you did pattern 2 with this being the 4th fret, D flat. And then you did B major. So I'm just going to solo a little bit over this, kind of generalizing, and then we'll talk about some chord shapes in the harmony. So. Like that. So you find little tricks to do in all these shapes, and I think that's the idea of, like, you want to spend equal time living in all these, because you'll find little tricks. So like right there, I got my cable. Hold on a second here. My cable's caught in my chair. Hilarious. And we're back. So growing pains. I look forward to looking back to these videos in 2 or 3 years and just cringing. But hey, man, you got to go through it. So I think you get the point there. Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about, like little trills or things like this. So, like, I mean, an easy one is, like, anytime you have a half step, you can do, like, a little trill there. So, like, if I'm in E flat, so this is pattern 1. You can throw in a little trill. That's a fun thing. And then I was doing the same thing when I was in pattern 3 when I was in B major. Have fun with it. And I think sometimes, especially when you're starting out, just kind of finding like fun things on guitar that like lay well in your hands. I always enjoyed that stuff, and it does sound good. I mean, it sounds good. Some things sound great on guitar. So explore that, and then maybe another day we can get heavy on the theory. But as far as I'll go is just kind of check out that melody. The melody's pretty instructive as it is. So, I mean, just that descending, like, right, pretty cool. So let's transition over to the harmony. Okay, I apologize all the time with these videos about my penmanship. I'll keep the streak alive. You can clearly see I was not hired as a teacher based on my penmanship, but believe it or not, it is actually getting better the more I'm kind of working with this Apple Pencil thing. So let's talk about the main keys. Well, we already talked about the main key centers, right? It kind of goes, right? And then ends up going back to B flat. It's kind of all bad. But I analyze these things all as just like in relation to B flat. So that way, if I'm going through, like say, going back to the single position study, say if I wanted to take this idea and arpeggiate through it, which I'll do a little bit of. I don't want to take too much time because I want to keep these videos around a half hour. But analyzing this way helps me see it within the cage system. As long as it doesn't, I think this one kind of goes right to the edge of where I would start analyzing in other keys, and you totally could. But let me kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. All right, so let's just take this for an example here. We'll just take that opening line, which is a great progression. It's the same progression as the beginning of Blues for Alice. Basically, what happens is you have a 1 chord, and then you go all the way to E flat. But if you work your way backwards, it's like if you did a sharp 4, which is I also talked about in You Must Believe in Spring. If you want to check out that video, I really went into in depth on that one. But I'll go real quick here. So first step, and a great thing just to get your vision of each of these of each of the caged patterns, is just find the root for all these notes. So boom, so you would go from like 1, 7, 3, 2, 6, 5, 1, then 4, 4, flat 7, flat 3, 3, and then it goes 3, flat 6, and there's your 2, flat 2. Not flat 7. Good Lord, cannot draw today. All right, there you go. So that's at that point, that's where you would go up a half step. So even just going da, 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 E flat, and then you do 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5. That, if you can do that in any cage pattern, that is already a huge leg up, because you're starting to teach yourself to see the scale tones, which I think is that's a must. If you want this thing to disappear and just be singing through your instrument, it's little things like this that are tedious, but I found do the most to kind of open the instrument up for me. So and then the next step would be is you do some simple arpeggio. Or now, of course, you don't want to solo that way. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like, you see a football player, they're doing push-ups, they're lifting weights. I mean, playing football is more than just doing push-ups, but it kind of helps you, think of it that way. These are like our version of push-ups, running stairs, doing what we have to do so that we can be free when we're trying to improvise. So, and yeah, if you really want to dive into that, that's certainly what I did over lockdown. Is I would take a progression like that, and then just try to be able to arpeggiate, at a bare minimum, try to arpeggiate that through any part of the neck. So if I went up to pattern 4, 7, that's interesting because it has you do a minor 2, 5, and then 3, 6, 2, 5. How are you? So I got to work on that, right? But and then eventually the idea is once you can do that all over the neck, then knowing the arpeggios is a huge, again, it's the bones of what you're trying to play. And if you're trying to nail the changes and give the listener the sound of those chords in their ears, which is not the only way to play, but it's important for us as jazz players. I think it's a good goal to be able to play that way if you have to. So that way you can hear the chord changes as they go by. So I don't know, it's say if now that I've done all that work and I can start filling in the chords, know if you could hear the changes or not. You know, I'm certainly, you know, I'm still working on this stuff too. But so there you go. There's an idea of this. I just, yeah, check this out. You know, even from just a chordal standpoint, that opening progression where it just goes. That's great, you know. This video is getting kind of long, so I might skip over the chord shapes. If you want, shoot me an email. Maybe I can do a bonus one. I think I know rhythm and Zaire are pretty good for, you know, chord shapes at this point. You know what? Let's do it. I'll do it real quick, and then we'll check out the recording. All right, so I'm gonna blow through these really quick, the way I would play through them. You know, my goal is you want to at least be able to get through this chord progression in two ways. Like one where the A half diminished starts with on the bass on the root on the low E string, and you want a version with the root on the A string. I think that'll give you a good. B flat. Getting ahead of myself here. So same deal. So I'm gonna go through the version where it's kind of down here. I think this is good for duo guitar playing because what we always deal with all the time is where we have two instruments in the similar ranges. You want to give space for the melody player to be able to poke through. So if the melody player's up high or soloing up high and you're up comping high, that's a cool effect temporarily. But I think over time you want to kind of like try to complement that, you know, in the sense like if they're way up high soloing, you want to be able to ground that and make it sound full, and that usually means kind of living around this range, you know. So A half diminished. We'll have to wait for the next. Let's do B flat major. Good old garden variety. If you want, there's kind of like a cool. It took me a while to get that, but that's a cool little add. So I kind of have like the fleshy part of this finger. You can get them both. All right. And then you have, this is 6th fret. And you've got A half diminished. It probably says flat 9 if I were to guess. See, where's my charts? It just says D7. Well, with a minor 2-5, more often than not, you can do a flat 9, and I'm going to put this over here in a different font so you can kind of see the difference. Sharp 9. So you got this. I mean, you know, your D7 would be just here, right? So even like from a voice leading standpoint, if you want that da da, or a thing that I'll do a lot, which resolves nicely to the next chord, which is G minor 7. So that would be your sharp 9. So you have a sharp 9, you know, which, you know, that's your Hendrix chord. Right? And then you bar that to get the flat 9. And then you get a nice resolution into the next chord, which is G minor 7. I like to bar these strings. The classical friends, they might do that. If it works, it works. And I know it says C7 on this chart. I'm going to write in a C9, you know. This is 3rd fret. Now, as it often happens when you're cycling through, you have a choice to make. You can put the F minor here, but once I start having to use open strings like this part of the neck, I'm probably looking to jump up. I'll maybe talk you through that. So you could do, I'm going to go ahead and write this. So the melody is an E flat. So I'm going to B flat 13, which is what I was playing there. So I'm going to show you another cool little voice leading that resolves to an E flat major 9. Put sharp 5, or you could put flat 13. Those are kind of, there's a difference, but for what we're looking at, they're the same. That could be a sharp 5 or a flat 13. I don't want to get into the theory on that at this point. You know, I think it's more time consuming and confusing than it is helpful at this point. 6th fret. But there's a cool thing you'll see a lot with this, like a 13 chord. And if you lower that to the sharp 5, and if you resolve it to an E flat 9, that's a cool sound. Now, nothing says you can't. You just go to your regular garden variety E flat major 7 shape, which I think everybody probably recognizes. This is probably more standard. And I'm looking at the melody here. I know the standard one we talk about is this for a minor shape. Like this would kind of be your normal one, right? And this is great. This is a great shape. But one that I would typically use more, and this is like, God, I remember my teacher showed me this in high school. It was great. All right, hold on a second here. There we go. Kind of doubles the third, but something about that sounds great too. Something about this sounds a little bit more open to me. And it plays nicely with like a 13 chord, which is how it was shown to me. It was kind of a combo. Which would follow the melody. Boom, bum, bum, hey. Right? So. And for that D flat, you know, you could just use your regular D flat shape. And then maybe there you could do, you know, the more standard one. Flat major. That was a fun trick my teacher showed me, like to learn half diminished shapes is if you take a major shape, major 7 shape, and sharp the root, that gives you half diminished. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's say if I take a B major 7 shape, which is what you're playing right before, right? All you gotta do is sharp the root. So I took a B major 7 and I sharped the root. Voila. If you go back to our original shape here, if you think about it, this A half diminished, if you thought of it as an A flat major, and just sharpen the root, so that would be A flat major. But I sharp the root, boom. So that's kind of an old school trick the guys would do. So just to summarize that, I'll play through them real quick. A half diminished, A B flat major, sometimes I'll throw in a 6/9 chord. That always works. I'll show you what that one looks like real quick. I need a bigger boat. Need more frets. All right. 6/9 I find, even though it may not reinforce the melody as much, I can get away from it with it, you know, a fair amount. And it's quite possible everybody around town is complaining about me behind my back, and I'm completely ignorant. But it doesn't seem to bother people. So, and then you can turn this shape into a 9. By the way, if you lower this note, that is now a 9, which is what I was using for D flat minor 9 or C sharp flat in minor 9, however you want it. So that's a minor 7. That's a minor 9. Okay. Talk that to death. Well, I said I was going to keep it around a half hour, so much for time management. But let's just check out the the original recording and see what's going on in there, and then I'll let you go. All right. Sorry, technical difficulties there. You didn't want to see my dumb face. You want to see the guitar while I'm talking about this stuff. So right out of the gate, you got this like... My teacher at Morehead State in Kentucky, Glenn Ginn, great guy, great teacher, really helped me grow and get my stuff together. So that voicing, you know, obviously you could do the Hendrix chord up here, but you can also do a version where the bass note is on the low E string, and that looks like this. You just go up a half step. Right? It sounds like this, but it's darker. To me, that sounds more kind of like the organ, and sometimes darker, you know. I dig it. So there's that shape. Hear the hi-hat squeaking in the background. Someone needs to get some WD-40 there on that hi-hat clutch or pedal. So a couple things there. So there's a cool thing that happens in the melody here. I got too many charts. Well, you can look at the chart, but that note that's sustained at the end is an F. So what sometimes is cool is to keep the F in the chord. Right, you know. It's almost kind of like a one-note song, but this is just... I digress. Not that this is what you would want to do, but this is what I'm doing in case you were curious. I'm doing the D minor 7. I'm putting that F. This is 10th fret. And then there's a cool voice leading thing that happens here. So when I go to D flat 7, which is just a tritone sub for G, you know. So when I don't know, we don't really talk about that, but this could be a G7 if you put the note there. So there's kind of a... So a lot of times with these shell voicings, if you keep the top note... I think the way they do it on the lead sheet is, in order to keep the F on top there, there's a couple ways to do this. The way I'm doing that is I'm doing an 11 chord. Sorry, C minor 11. This would be 8th fret. Just F7 to keep the note on the top. Good old campfire C7 shape. Whatever that song is, put the lime in the coconut. So there you go. There's that shape. All right, going back. So there was that, and then there was a cool thing that happened with the melody there. I was rudely talking over the melody, but whatever. You can go back and listen to this stuff. Kind of go back to our tritone sub thing, right? If you wanted to make that a B flat 7 sharp 11, which would be the B flat, or no, just B7 sharp 11. You put the root there. So, not the face on the iPad, the guitar and the iPad. Pretty cool, huh? So, all right. I keep getting sidetracked. I guess that's the idea. We're just hanging out. So a cool little variation on the melody there. Something like that. Something like that, you know, but that was kind of cool. Keeping it straight here. You know. So there's a cool little, kind of gets bluesy there. So Glenn Ginn, the teacher I had in Kentucky, he did a guitar ensemble arrangement of this that I'll link into the tune sheet. But I think either I'll put a note there which part actually he transcribed the solo and harmonized it for 5 guitars. It was great. So. It's a great solo. So he is soloing in B major. I said something about B leading. I don't know. Sometimes I just start talking before I really know what I'm talking about. It's a problem I have. But there's like things like that, you know, as you get comfortable going up the neck, you know, say if I was in B major. And as I'm thinking like, oh, if I'm going to B flat major, I just figure out, okay, wherever that chord changes, maybe I'll go to B flat. I don't know, something like that, you know. That kind of. There's a thing I always think about, like at the end of a tune, especially when it's just, you know, it's like a 3-6-2-5 kind of going back. A cheat code. I don't know if you guys ever watch wrestling where like the guys get that, you know, they tag like it's like, you know, 2-on-2. If they tag their teammate, they have like 10 seconds for a combo. I think of that like, you know, there's kind of like a blues version of that where, you know, blues is the ultimate, you know, cheat code. You could blues through the whole thing, but I find if you save it for like the last 4 bars, you'll more often than not you'll get like a yeah. Someone in the crowd will like, yeah, that's great. So he's been bebopping through that whole course, but as it goes to, of course you can nail the changes. Right? But you can also just, you know, right? Yeah, you can just blues out, tell your story, right? And it'll work in those last 4 bars. I think what a great solo. It's crazy to think that he's whistling along with it too. Should steal me. So that's all in the key, right? It starts on the 5th. He's playing an octave. Right? Now, normally in B flat that would be an A, right? But we are preparing the listener to go to the 4 chord, E flat. So we need that A flat. That A flat is the difference between B flat major and E flat major. Would be that A flat. A natural for B flat, A flat for E flat major. There's that blues thing. Kind of doing that double stop. I don't know, just makes you happy. There's kind of like an extended 3-6-2-5 here. So that would be like a B minor 11. Or maybe a G7. I'd have to study it. Obviously, I haven't studied enough, but it would be. Let me go back and play along with it. Yeah, G7. And then you do. The review, it was B minor 11. So, if you remember me showing you that shape from C minor 11, just take that up 2 frets. I have to go back and learn the notes. Can't do everything for you. And I'm not saying you have to do this for class, but I think it's known enough that when people call this tune, if you can reference the solo on this or like little arrangements, I've certainly, when I've played it out, this is not uncommon for us to go to this. It's not uncommon to go to that vamp at the end. It's a cute little. So it's kind of like going off of B minor, A flat, B flat, C, F up an octave, and then just 1-5 octave. It's a cool little ending there. Oh, 47 minutes. Well, if you made it this far, sorry. And I owe you an apology. Thank you for sticking with me. And, again, it's like, just not trying to wait for perfect, just trying to get comfortable making these lessons for you. And I know it's kind of all over the place sometimes, but hopefully, you got something out of this, and whatever you didn't like, it's easy enough to fast forward, or you can just speed through. So I hope that gives you some ideas. It's fun. I always love geeking out on this stuff. It gives me an excuse to practice myself. So, all right. Well, have a good one. Any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, see you next time.